Disclaimer: I do not condone or condemn the use of drugs. I am just here to share my experiences. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Hello everyone, and no, the title of this video is not clickbait. I really did take 5 dried grams of magic mushrooms for my first ever time. And anyone who has ever done mushrooms before knows that 5 dried grams is a ridiculously high dose for a first timer. So you might be asking yourself, why did I do this? And to put it simply, I really wanted to change my life for the better. Up until then, I was suicidally depressed for the past 10 years of my life, if not more. I thought that my life has no meaning, and I did not accept the cultural values that I was raised in. So all of this, of course, caused a lot of issues with my life, and I decided that the psychedelic experience will be the final frontier of my life. Like, if this doesn't show me the reason why I should keep on living, then nothing ever will be. I was just dull to life. So in my place, mushrooms are almost impossible to buy off of someone, so I had to grow them myself, and this process took me about 9 months. In those 9 months, I gathered a large amount of data on psychedelic experience and things like that. I listened to a lot of Terence McKenna, but I had really no clue what I was getting myself into. Those 9 months flew by quite fast, and after my first harvest I dried up the mushrooms, weighed out exactly 5.0 grams and went to a friend's house. I fasted for about 6 hours before my experience, and the only instructions I gave my friend was to close me in a room and do his own thing for the next 8 hours while I have the experience. And I knew I was going to be okay, that nothing will physically be wrong with me during those 8 hours. So I laid the dry mushrooms onto a table and ate them with water. And of course they tasted awful, and I had to chew them quite a bit. It was like 3 mouthfuls of mushrooms before I chewed them all down. And I was shaking in fear and adrenaline at that point. Like, it's not like I was hysterical, but I was definitely anxious, and my friend noticed it and said, "Dude, it's almost like you're eating nails or something," and we both laughed at that. Of course, none of us knew what was going to happen. I drank the last bit of water from the water bottle, closed my eyes and said a little prayer. I was asking the mushroom to please be gentle with me, and I had some stupid requests, like I asked the mushroom, while it still wasn't working, that if she can say what I should do with my life, and silly things like that. They're really small on the cosmic scale and really not worth even mentioning. It's up to me to figure that out. And I had one request which was actually valid, and that was to make me feel again. Like, feel everything, from pain to pleasure. And just that my life becomes more vibrant again. So yeah, I closed myself into a dark room and simply waited there. I only brought my wristwatch and a water bottle that I put on a table besides me, so that I can check the time out, and I thought that it would be useful, but it wasn't useful at all. I was now truly in silent darkness because I put my headphones, without them being connected to a phone in my ears so that it muffles the music from the outside, and the only light that was coming was in the form of few horizontal lines that were coming from the closed window. And this is where it slowly gets crazy, and I'm sorry if I'm making little sense, but it's hard to describe these psychedelic experiences, so bear with me. It was about 3:30 when the first effects kicked in, and they were quite undescribable because I never felt anything like that before. I just felt this enormous energy moving through my body. It felt like a photocopy machine was scanning me with its beam of light, moving from my toes to my head and repeating that motion over and over. And I felt such surges of energy that they almost felt like lightning hitting me. And they actually caused some pain in my head and in the rest of my body. They were just so strong. Walls were becoming melty, and I started losing track of time. At about 3:30 I started kind of giggling uncontrollably, and I started seeing a monster forming from the rays of light that the window was emitting on the wall. Of course, this didn't cause me panic, but it was kind of strange. I felt my jaw melting as I left, and I passed out for who knows how long. All I remember when I was passed out is that I heard some glorious music, and seriously, it was out of this world. It sounded like a mix of psytrance, metal music, and I was truly enjoying it, but at the same time, I felt like I was going crazy and I no longer had control over my thoughts or actions. But my physical body just kept on lying on that bed and doing nothing. Which is good because you can hurt yourself while you are in that state. I speculate that it was about 4 p.m. after I woke up. But I didn't wake up in this ordinary reality. I woke up in the drawing that I am drawing right here. And I was approached by these two entities. And I really felt broken, like I was a broken machine just lying there on cold floor. And I really needed some help. And when these two beings came towards me, they looked just as surprised as I was. They were talking to each other in a language that I couldn't understand, but yeah, it was apparent that they needed to do something about me. They didn't know what to do with me, so I just felt like they transferred some love and affection to me, like they held out their hands and just beamed it towards me or something. And yeah, I felt a little bit better, and by doing that, they sent me away. And while I was being sent away, I was again unconscious. At 4:30, I woke up in this ordinary reality, but it felt like I was high on more than 1000 micrograms of LSD. I barely managed to raise my hands up, and I noticed that they were all cybernetic, like, I don't know, a mix between a knight, the Iron Man, and yeah, they just looked futuristic. They had cogs in them, and everything was moving, and scales were covering them. It was at this point that I forgot my name, forgot everything who I was, and I just felt utterly alien inside this machine body. And yeah, the body high was unbelievable. It was so high that I simply disassociated from my body, like my brain couldn't handle it. And the interesting thing about this is that I had the same vision when I closed my eyelids and when my eyelids were open. And I actually touched my eyelids with my hands to confirm this because the body high was just so high that I couldn't trust if I actually closed my eyelids or not. So yeah, this is clairvoyance or something. And it no longer mattered that I was in silent darkness. Everything crawled with geometric patterns, and I actually saw surfaces around me better than uh, when it was daytime in my sober state, which is completely bizarre and unexplainable. 4:40 p.m. At about that time, I again felt as if I was getting sucked out of my body, and I entered a rainbow tunnel, and I felt like I was traveling through it at the speed of light. And this animation shows how it looked like. Of course, it isn't an exact replication, but it's the best one that I could find. And shout out to Uon Visuals on Instagram for letting me use his work for my video. And yeah, that tunnel was just turning in a clockwise motion, and I just felt so disoriented when I went through it. Again, I had no concept of who I was, why I was here, and yeah, I just traveled. At about 4:50, I bursted out of the tunnel and I met the grand entity of the mushroom realm. I like to call her the mushroom goddess, and I'm currently drawing one of the encounters with her right here. You can see it. And she is beautiful. She has a cap of a mushroom as her own hat, and she often wears dresses. At least that's what I saw her as. And she speaks in this deep, female-ish voice that is heavily layered. So I attempted to use a voice changer to kind of replicate it, but it doesn't even come close. So here, listen to some of the things she said.
I know who you are. Come with me.
Of course I came with her, and I had this feeling that she knew why I was here. So I didn't have to talk very much during the encounter. She then took me to this place that I'm drawing right here, and from my research that I only done recently, I realized that I might have discovered the Akashic Records. In the Hindu lore, it is a place where all of the things that have happened so far are stored. Besides the events in the past, I could also see the events in the future and things that are happening right now around the world. And truly, it was remarkable. And these records presented themselves in thousands upon thousands of these sheets that stretched for who knows how long. And each sheet had these panels which represented single events, like they were the smallest unit of information about an event. And yeah, she basically said,
Choose whichever events you want to see. Come back to me when you're done.
and each time I picked something, it was like I stepped into an 8D cinema. Sort of like watching television, but you're actually in the place that they are reporting about. And yeah, like I gathered extremely low amounts of information from that, which is unfortunate, but yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, it's truly remarkable as to what will become of us in the future. All I can say is that we really did depart for the stars. After who knows how long, I came back to the goddess and asked her what's next. And she excitedly told me that she wanted to show me something. And this is where the following picture takes place. Unfortunately, I didn't film a time lapse about this, but yeah, she set me up in this place. The giant human head in the middle represents me alongside with the rest of humanity. And I had this insatiable hunger. I ate and destroyed everything in my path without feeling any remorse about it. And suddenly I came across this pile of mushrooms that you see in the middle. I don't know if it's gonna show up on video, but I drew them. And at that point, the mushroom goddess said to me,
We may be Earth's last line of defense against creatures of your kind, but she's willing to sacrifice herself for you.
I just couldn't believe what was happening and how insightful that talk with her was. But yeah, in the real world, I fell off of my bed and dragged my face across the floor. And this is why it is important to have a trip sitter that won't panic. Because even though I looked bizarre, there was no cause for panic because I was physically safe. Another vision that she showed me was in a forest setting, and she and I actually kind of flew over there, and we watched a bear hunt down a buck. And of course it ended very bad for the buck, and the bear started eating him. And we sort of saw the soul or the essence or whatever you want to call it of the deer floating above its body and sort of like looking at it and realizing that it is over. Well, I can't really say what happened next to the essence or the body, but yeah, it's something to think about. And keep in mind that this is only about 5% of the experience. The other 95% I just can't remember. And I can't put most of the experience into words. After the deer vision, I actually woke up in the real world, and the hallucinations were so strong that I couldn't even see hands in front of my face. And yeah, the room was just covered with thousands of eyes, geometrically arranged, and it was sort of shaped like a dome. Again, I couldn't remember who I was or what I was, or that I was even human, and I was almost paralyzed. I could only like lift my hands up a bit, but nothing much. And then I fell unconscious again. I woke up in the rainbow tunnel again. Just traveling through the speed of light through the hyperspace back into my body. And when I came out of the tunnel, I just kept repeating my name over and over and over again, because I was trying to desperately remember who I was. I honestly felt like a drop of water, fully incorporated into the bed. I wanted to sit up, but every time I tried to sit up, it's like my whole perspective switched back to the place where I was lying down, and this repeated like 20 or so times. And again, it's just crazy to even think about it, let alone experience it. The boundaries of my body slowly started coming back to me, and yeah, I remembered who I was. And even though I felt like I was on more than 500 micrograms of acid, I was like, okay, I'm sober now, it's okay, the experience is almost over. If I had to guess what time it was about 7 p.m. And in the distance I could hear firecrackers and fireworks being lit, and I don't know, it just sounded nice coming back to this reality and being human again. It felt comforting. I was processing the experience and just trying to remember as much as I can. And I assumed the fetal position, not because I was scared again. Actually, I was terrified, but the experience was over and I knew it. And I just sat on the bed in silence for some time. And then this happened. So the friend whose house this was came into the room to give me some fresh air. And he looked like a tiny dwarf when he came through that door. Like, seriously. It's almost like he was shorter than half a meter. And imagine being in total darkness for about 5 hours. Yeah, you would hallucinate colors and see them way more vividly even if you were sober, but I was still high from the mushrooms. And yeah, when he opened that door, just the most beautiful array of colors started pouring through, and I was really glad to see him. He was more than a little bit terrified of the noise I was making while I was in there. He opened the window to let some fresh air in. It didn't take me long after that to stand up on my feet. I was really feeling intoxicated, but I could walk. And when I looked out of my window, I saw the neighbor's house shaped like a mushroom. Like the roof of his house was almost like a pointy mushroom hat, which looked very cool. Psilocybin trips are almost always the most visually active when you can move around at the end, at least for me. Until then, you are mostly sitting in one place and you aren't moving around that much. So you can't go into the other rooms and, yeah, go out in the nature or something like that. But I got up on my feet and I slowly started making my way to the door. And when I stepped out of the room, everything was warped. Like, it's almost like I walked in a hallway that was tilted 30 degrees to one side. Almost like how a ship tilts when big waves are hitting it. And eyes were still everywhere. When I rounded the corner and saw my friend there, his eyes were no longer on his head, and yeah, everything was just so warped. But I had no problem with that because the world that I just came out of was so much more titanically weird that this was no problem for me. Everything looked like it had a watery layer over it, and that watery layer moved around a bit, and had really intricate geometric patterns, and patterns from one surface continued spreading onto the other. And yeah, it was just amazing to look at it. I can only remember playing chess after that, and there it's not like I became a chess grandmaster after this experience. That would be silly. But I played a little bit more risky, and I made some unusual moves, but I think I won nevertheless. And after that we discussed the experience a little bit, and I went to sleep. So what is the aftermath of this experience? Well, I can safely say that it has saved my life. And I was a strong atheist up until then, but I still am. However, I believe in the spiritual dimension now, and there is definitely something after death. And don't be naive and think that my depression went away just like that. No, I was still depressed, and I still had to invest a lot of hard hours and experiences into fixing myself. And eventually I did, and I am glad for it. But it prevented me from taking my own life away before I could fix myself. And really, I just cannot describe how glad I am that I took the necessary steps and grew these mushrooms myself. And I established a relationship with them, if you want to call it that. So I really think that more people should know about this, and I'm sure that it can help someone out there. So please share this video, and yeah, see you next time, guys. If you like this content, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link for it will be in the description below. And check the artist of the tunnel animation. His art is really great. Your support is greatly appreciated, and it will allow me to make more of this content. Much love to everybody.